Leaders of 47 countries wrapped up an historic nuclear security summit in Washington with new multinational commitments aimed at keeping dangerous weapons-grade nuclear material out of terrorists' hands. Several nations agreed to tighten controls on their stores of plutonium and uranium, vital ingredients for the nuclear weapons terrorists covet.
Because of the steps we've taken as individual nations and as an international community, the American people will be safer and the world will be more secure.
President Obama issued a dire warning to summit attendees. The risk of a nuclear confrontation between nations is down, while the risk of a nuclear terror attack is up. Nuclear terrorism at the hands of al-Qaeda and other rogue organizations is now one of the greatest threats to global security, the president stressed.
We also agreed that the most effective way to prevent terrorists and criminals from acquiring nuclear materials is through strong nuclear security, protecting nuclear materials and preventing nuclear smuggling.
Countries such as Mexico, Canada, Malaysia, and the Ukraine agreed to tighten controls on their stores of plutonium and uranium. But in a key disappointment for the Obama administration, Chinese President Hu Jintao rebuffed the president and refused to join new sanctions efforts against Iran, despite recent warnings the Islamic Republic will have nuclear capabilities within a month. The Heritage Foundation's National Security and Defense Affairs expert, James Carafano.
I think the problem is that while the president may say we need to focus on nuclear terrorism and everybody thinks that's great, most of our strategies that he's implementing are actually increasing the likelihood of proliferation. Cutting missile defense makes you more vulnerable. That makes nuclear weapons more attractive. Declaring that you're not going to modernize means your weapons are older and less usable. It's a less credible deterrent. Again, that's another incentive to modernize. We've done nothing really to deter Iran or North Korea. And every time North Korea or Iran advance in their programs and only advance their own programs, it's advertising, and both those countries are very, very willing proliferators. And then the third problem is that other countries may feel that the U.S. deterrent is less reliable and they need their own nuclear weapons. So I think the likelihood of proliferation using the strategies the administration has adopted is actually increasing the likelihood that there's going to be more nuclear powers and more nuclear weapons available.
The summit occurred just 1 week after the release of the Obama administration's Nuclear Posture Review, which renounced the development of new nuclear warheads and the use of nuclear weapons against non-nuclear states that adhere to treaty commitments.
Bottom line, I want any nation thinking of doing anything as extreme as to attack America with biological or chemical weapons to fear that we would respond with a nuclear attack. We hope we never get to that point, but I want our enemies to be uncertain and afraid.
In a separate development, the president recently signed a new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, or START, with Russia. If ratified by the Senate, the treaty would limit both countries to 1,500 deployed nuclear warheads, a reduction of 500 such warheads by the United States. It is a step toward total disarmament, says Frank Gaffney, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Nuclear Forces and Arms Control Policy in the Reagan administration, and the founder of the Center for Security Policy.
Well, actually, both the new Nuclear Posture Review and the START Treaty reflect the president's overarching ambition, something that's been a fixation of his, I think it's fair to say, going back to 1983, when he was a young radical at Columbia University, and that is with the idea of disarming the world, he says, but as a practical matter, the only country he can disarm is the United States. And I think both of these are steps in that direction.
There are plans to review the progress of the summit attendees. A follow-up conference is set for South Korea in 2012. Kathleen Walter, Newsmax TV.